Hello students of Discovery International School to your own channel, that is the DYCL, which brings to you the best coaching facility in the town today available for your preparation in the NEET and JEE. Clear? So for that, for receiving the daily videos, you have to just go to the YouTube, as I have discussed every day, that you have to just search for the channel over here, get yourself subscribed and also hit the bell icon over here so that you can get the daily updates or the daily notifications of the videos which we post from time to time. Clear? So getting back to the chapter that is going on, which is your Mendelian genetics, and we have seen that we were discussing about the pedigree analysis, and in pedigree analysis we had already discussed about the cytoplasmic inheritance. We had dealt with the Y-linked disorders or the genetic diseases, how it is going on, and we have also dealt with the autosomal inheritance, that is both concepting the dominant as well as the recessive. The last part of the today regarding this pedigree analysis is the X-linked genetic disorders, how they follow a path from generations to generations. So we will be taking the two concepts, that is both the dominant as well as the recessive in your X-linked diseases. So let's begin today's lecture. So first of all, if I ask you that the X-linked, so obviously the affected gene will be present over the X chromosome. It will be present over the X chromosome, and we know that the males will having only one X chromosome, whereas the other will be the Y, because of the male heterogamity. Whereas if I ask about the females, then the females will be having a copy of the X chromosome. So we can say this as the female homogamity. And we also know that this X-linked can be either due to the presence of the dominant gene or it can be due to the recessive gene. So we will be discussing for both the two cases, that will be either your dominant gene or your recessive gene. So how to find out? Now, just as we have seen in the autosomal linked diseases, that is in recessive, both has to be present. Only under the homozygous condition we have to listen to this. And when we will be talking about the dominant, either it can be that both of them will be having the dominant gene, that is a homozygous condition, or one of the them, that is if only the single presence of a dominant gene is there, that is in a heterozygous condition, then also the individual can be getting affected. Clear? Now, before moving on to this, the first concept which we will be using is that the skip of generation. So we know that skip of generation is generally present in the recessive, and it is generally skip of generation is not present in the dominating thing. Clear? So we will be first of all writing, so here no skip of generation will be observed. No skip of generation is there. This will occur in every generations. So no skip of generation will be occurring. Whereas if I talk about in the recessive one, here the skip of generation will be present. Skip of generation will be present. Next, now comes the tricky ones of how we have to just remember which one will be which type of pedigree. We will be taking each of the cases. To begin with, first of all, we will be looking into the cases for dominant. we have to remember that this is a type of your X-linked dominant. So if I talk about in the dominant, the first thing or the first case which we have to remember is that if the father is affected, so if the father is affected, that is the affected father will always have affected daughter. So affected father will always have affected daughter. Affected daughter. And why so? Daughter. Why so? Let us see. Suppose this is the mother and this is your father. And we have seen that the father is affected over here. So, either it can be, clear? It has to be this one. The X chromosome is having a single presence of the dominant gene. Clear? So, here the father cannot be a carrier. It has to be, if the defective gene is on the X chromosome, the father has to be your affected. Clear? But here I can say that this mother either can be normal, or it can be a carrier. But यहाँ पे carrier आपका होगा नहीं. क्यों नहीं होगा? Because अगर presence of single है, so आपका ये भी आपका affected हो सकता है. So इसके पास recessive gene हो सकता है, ये combination हो सकता है. अब if I talk about the children of this progeny, so suppose this one and a daughter is produced. तो ये daughter के अंदर क्या होगा? One will be from the X will be coming from the father and the other will be coming from the mother. So suppose either this condition can be happening. So either this or this condition can be happening. But in both the cases, if a single presence of the dominant gene is present on the X chromosome, that means that the daughter will be getting affected. So here the daughter will be getting affected. But since only the Y chromosome is coming from the father over here, and because there is not the presence of a dominant gene in the mother over the X chromosome, so either this can be the normal or this can be like this. So the male child will not be affected. So we can see a crisscross type of presentation over here, that if the father is affected, it is transferred to the opposite sex, that is the daughter. Clear? So in dominant we have to just think about this topic. Clear? अब अगर मैं अब यहाँ पे बात करूँ regarding the recessive case, so यहाँ पे अलग अलग हम लोग cases पढ़ेंगे. Here we had taken the father to be affected, and affected father will always, we have to remember, the affected father will always be your daughter. The daughter will be again affected. यहां पे हम लोग लेंगे कि if the father is normal, if father is normal, then the daughter is never affected. Is never affected. Clear? And why so? We know that recessive will be only affected when both the recessive gene will be present only under the homozygous condition. Clear? But here it can either be your this one, it can either be this one, it can either be your this one. All these cases, the child will be of the different genotypes, the child will be, or the individual will be affected. Clear? So the father, if is normal, then the daughter is never affected. And how can we bring about the learning for it? Suppose this is the mother and suppose this is your father. Father is never affected. And if I say never affected, then either it can be this one or it can be the presence of this one. Clear? So here it is not affected because it is a dominant gene over here and this is a recessive disorder. Clear? And the mother, it may be, if I say the mother may be your either infected or your carrier. So it can be affected, if I say, or it can be a carrier. So over here, if I talk about the male child and the female child. Clear? So one will be coming from the mother and the other one will be from the father. So obviously we can see that the homozygous condition will not be achieved, और अगर homozygous condition नहीं achieve होगा, so this daughter will be unaffected. ये daughter कैसे होगा? The daughter will be unaffected. ठीक, तो हमारा जो ये स्टेटमेंट है, ये स्टेटमेंट बिल्कुल सही है कि अगर फादर नॉर्मल है, इफ द फादर इज नॉर्मल, देन फ्रॉम द प्रोजेनीज द वन विच विल बी डॉटर, it will be unaffected. Clear? Getting back to the next topic, we will be taking the next example right now. That is, now, if mother is affected, if the mother is affected, then here also we will be finding a crisscross transmission of the affected gene. That is, if the mother is affected, all the male child will be affected. Will be affected. Sorry. Affected. And to begin up with the understanding of this, so this is the mother and this is the father, and as per as the statement, the mother is affected. So if the mother is affected, then both the recessive genes will be present together on the X chromosome, whereas the father will be your normal. Now, in all the progenies, if I ask, the male child, why it will be affected? Because it will receive one, the X will be from the mother that will be carrying the defective gene, and it will be receiving the Y, and since Y will not be in any case, it will only be transmitting the male characters. So Y के वजह से ये जो आपका zygote है, this will be transforming into a male. But since the X will be having the recessive gene over here, therefore this male will be affected. Clear? So over here I can say, if the mother is affected, clear, then the male child will always be affected. Okay, so this statement is also true. Now there is another case if I ask for this one. The third and the last concept we will be using is that if mother is heterozygous, that is, out of the two X chromosomes, one will be carrying the defective gene and the other will be carrying the normal gene. So if the mother is heterozygous, then in the previous statement what we had, if the mother is affected, that is, both the X chromosome will be containing the defective gene, then all the male child will be affected. But next statement is, if the mother is heterozygous, then only 50% of the male child, 50% of the male child or the male progeny which is being, आपका जो जन्म ले रहा है, that will be affected. That will be affected. Clear? इन दोनों में डिफरेंशिएट कर लिए. यहां पे मैं बोल रहा हूं when the mother is affected, और यहां पे बोल रहा हूं द मदर इज हेटेरोजाइगस, जिसका मतलब है कि द मदर विल बी अ कैरियर। अगर मदर कैरियर होता है और द फादर इज नॉर्मल, देन जितने भी आपके मेल चाइल्ड पैदा होगा फ्रॉम दिस कपल, द 50%, द हाफ द आपका जो मेल चाइल्ड होंगे, दे विल बी अफेक्टेड और हाफ विल बी योर नॉर्मल। देखते हैं इसका डायग्रामेटिक एक्सप्लेनेशन। सो द मदर इज अ कैरियर, द मदर इज अ कैरियर, दैट मीन्स it is containing only a single defective gene in the X chromosome, whereas the father is your this one. Now, from all the progenies, if I ask, suppose this one gets with and be this, and this one only the Y will be receiving, but here it will be. So this kind of a combination can happen where only, see, there are two male child from this generation, from this couple, but only a single of the two will be getting affected with the disease. Clear? So what are the things which we studied today? We discussed about your X-linked genes, and in the X-linked genes we discussed about the dominant and the recessive. In the dominant, obviously because it is dominant, so यहाँ पे कोई भी skip of generation नजर नहीं आएगा। Clear? आप इस केस में भी देख सकते हैं कि all the generations there is an individual which is getting affected. यहाँ पे केस क्या है ना, यहाँ पे जो केस होगा that will be affected father, हमेशा उसका जो आपका गर्ल चाइल्ड पैदा होगा that will be affected. Clear? यहां पर रिसेसिव के अंदर ऑब्वियसली वी विल बी नोटिसिंग द स्किप ऑफ जनरेशन। ठीक, यहां पर देखो एक जनरेशन में था, एक जनरेशन में आपका अनअफेक्टेड हुआ। क्लियर? सो पहला केस हम लोग क्या पढ़े इसके अंदर ना, पापा अगर नॉर्मल है, फादर अगर नॉर्मल है, तो फिर उसके डॉटर कभी भी अफेक्ट नहीं हो सकता है। अच्छा, एक चीज आप ध्यान दो, यहां पे हमेशा जितने भी हम लोग एग्जांपल्स अभी तक लिए, वी आर ऑलवेज डिस्कसिंग अबाउट द ऑपोजिट सेक्स, कि फादर टू द डॉटर, मदर टू द सन। क्लियर? तो एक्स लिंक्ड के अंदर ये बहुत अच्छी तरह आपको ध्यान देना है कि जो आपका जेनेटिक डिसऑर्डर जो ट्रांसमिट होगा वन जनरेशन से दूसरे जनरेशन, क्लियर, इफ इट इज skipping then it will be a recessive. If it is not skipping, that is in all the generations we are observing the like diseased individuals, then it will be a dominant. And if the disease is setting a pattern that from the males of one generation, the disease is being transferred to the females, clear, or the female child, then this will be a X-linked. Clear? It can be either your dominant or it can be either recessive. So let's see the cases over here in the recessive. If the father is normal, then neither of the daughter will be affected. Clear? Next, we had learnt about that if the mother is affected, then all the male child will be affected. And just reversing this statement, if the mother is a carrier and not affected, if the mother is carrier, and carrier, how will it be possible? If the mother is heterozygous, that is one, either of the X will be carrying the defective genes. So if she is heterozygous, then there is a probability that out of all the male child which is living to birth, only the 50% ratio, that is half the male child, will be getting affected. Clear? So tomorrow in the next lecture, I'll be setting up with certain kind of practice regarding the pedigree analysis. We will be analyzing different kind of pedigree charts, and we will be going through that how can we, using this kind of methods, we can easily derive and come to the conclusion that whether it is a cytoplasmic inheritance, whether it is a Y-linked, whether it is a autosomal linked, or whether it is an X-linked disorder. Clear? So कल के लिए आपको ये सारे चीजें बहुत अच्छी तरह पेडिग्री देखना पड़ेगा। पेडिग्री यहीं तक ही है, कल हम लोग पेडिग्री के ऊपर सवाल सॉल्व करेंगे। क्लियर? सो टिल देन, थैंक यू।